Welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 283, week 14 gambling show. Pains me that we're this deep into the NFL season. It does not pain me, Damonza, that we are profitable on the season on this show. It has been a long, tough slog to profitability, while the TV show picks have been killing because I pick my three favorite. I do 5 picks every week on this show. I pick my 3 favorite ones on Friday with an extra, 28 hours of injury news added to it from Thursday morning to Friday afternoon. So we're 61% against the spread on TV. We are right now 53.1% against the spread on this show after another 4-1 week. Damonza, of course, crushed one of the easiest teasers ever. I think he covered them both by 20 points or something. So We'll discuss that later. Damonza, how are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Pops?
I'm doing well. We have a special guest on today's show, which means briefly Damonza will be bounced, but then he will be back to give America his teaser. But we don't really do guests, and I'm just going to tell you this now before the person gets here. Uninvited guest. Person just announced, I want to come on the pod Thursday. I'm inviting myself on. And I was like, not really how we do things around here, and America demands the synergy of Damonza and I during the gambling segment, but I decided, you got to pick your battles in this world. So, uninvited guest about a half hour from now. But first, let's get to today's actual shows, our actual topics before we get to the picks. Here's what missed the cut. Joe Burrow buys the Batmobile in NBA Cup knockout round set, and Spotify Wraps came up. I just want to talk about the Batmobile for a second. If the price tag really was, Damonza, $3 million, I'm going to go ahead and say irresponsible purchase by Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a rich man. I don't think he is quite rich enough to spend $3 million responsibly on something that is just like you can't use. Now, maybe the argument is it's like a piece of art. It's going to appreciate in value, but I don't know that I think that is accurate. Joe Burrow right now, career earnings through this season, $140 million. Obviously, he's done well for himself, but so you're that means 2% of your career earnings, a little bit more, are on this Batmobile. I think it's a little pricey. I got to tell you. That seems like the type of purchase for a billionaire, not a millionaire. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he sells it for $4 million, and it's a great investment.
Bought a
what
lot
do I
of
know?
property with $3 million. But
you buy a lot of stuff. And listen, people buy art all the time. They just hang it on a wall. It's not like it has functional, but usually the assumption there is that it's going to, go up in value, or you're going to do some insurance scam. Who knows? Also, why is it not street legal? That's now, if it were street legal, he's like, hey, I'm just going to be driving this around. Well, I mean, the guns obviously aren't functional. The rest of it, that thing's got a great turning radius. Seems, maybe it's 2. If you get in a wreck, you're going to mess the other person up. I don't know. All right, Damonza, let's get to the actual topics of the show, because I have a little rant that I need to get to off the top here.
Yeah, so we had a really fun Cowboys topic here, but we took it out, or I guess you took it out, because you have a problem with the 7-team playoff format. So could you please explain to us what your gripe is with that?
So I think the NFL has made a lot of smart decisions over the last decade in making the game more consumer friendly. Protecting the quarterbacks, I think, is a smart business decision. Recognizing it's an entertainment product. There's a lot of smart things they've done. We're now 5 years into it, and I'm officially ready to declare the playoff expansion was something they didn't need to do and they shouldn't have done. And for, basically my whole life, the way the NFL playoffs worked was 6 teams per conference, buys to the 1 and the 2 seed, go. During the COVID year, they expanded it to 7 teams per conference, just 1 bye. And I think this year is a great example of why that was a mistake. So first, the history of it. We have never seen one of those 7 seeds that otherwise wouldn't have gotten in go on a playoff run. Last year was the first year the 7 seed ever in either conference even won a game. But what the 7 seeds have provided us are the following. The first year of it, we got old man Phillip Rivers playing for the Colts in the playoffs. They lost to Buffalo. And you got, I think it was Mitch Trubisky and the Bears making the playoffs. They got cracked by New Orleans. The next year, the 7 seed was Jalen Hurts, his first year as a starter, looking wholly unprepared against Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. They got blown out. And then the better than a bye Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger in his farewell tour saying, oh, we're out of here, doing high fives to the crowd after week 16 thinking their season was over, somehow getting into the playoffs and losing by 21 to the Chiefs. The next year, the 7 seed gave us Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins losing to the Bills, and Seattle getting absolutely annihilated by the Niners. Last year, the 7 seed gave us, once again, Pittsburgh making the playoffs, this time with Mason Rudolph. And then the one good 7 seed event we ever had, Green Bay beating Dallas in that game, kind of, spurred Green Bay to where it is. So we're 1 for 8 on the 7 seed providing anything, and 0 for 8 on the 7 seed winning more than one playoff game. But here's the real reason I don't like it. This season in particular. There's no playoff race. If we had the old format, Damonza, in the AFC, Chargers 8-4, Ravens 8-5, Denver 8-5. One of them is missing the playoffs. You have super high leverage, important. That Ravens-Eagles game this past weekend would have been massive for Baltimore. Oh my God. We are tied for the final playoff spot. Instead, Denver getting that win against the Browns would have felt so huge. And that's just the AFC right now. Instead, we look at it and it's like, oh, we know who the 7 playoff teams in the AFC are. We don't know the order, but it would take a true collapse for Indy or Miami to end up catching Chargers, Ravens, Broncos. Otherwise, the Chargers are playing a game this weekend, Sunday Night Football, Damonza, against the Chiefs, that kind of means nothing for them. They're not catching Kansas City for the division, and they're not falling out of the playoffs. If it were 6 playoff team format, they would feel like, oh my God, if we don't win this game, we are tied for the final playoff spot. And then go to the NFC. The same thing's happening. Now you can say the NFC has real playoff races, but the NFC's playoff races are ones that would exist in any format because they're only divisional races. Who's going to win the NFC West? Who's going to win the NFC South? But as far as who's going to be in the playoffs from a wild card perspective, we know who it is. 2 NFC North teams and Washington. If we had the old playoff format, Damonza, the Packers would be like, holy crap. If we win tonight, we might actually somehow be able to win the division. But if we lose tonight, we're a game out of missing the playoffs entirely. Washington's 3-game skid from a few weeks ago would have felt crippling. And instead, we're just locked into these teams. And so, for the NFL, and where we really want to feel like every game has a high level real importance, I don't love that if you're a good team, you really can't miss the playoffs now. In years past, it was like, man, that was a good team that didn't get into the postseason. Like it would have been for Green Bay last year. Green Bay last year is like, man, they were red hot. They did all this stuff. Sorry. Every game matters. And so I just don't love it. I also don't love the fact that Kansas City or Buffalo this year could finish 15-2 and not get a bye. Like, the fact that I think the Chiefs are going to get the 1 seed, so it actually is advantageous for Kansas City. But if the Bills, say the Bills lose this weekend to the Rams, and then beat the Lions, then take care of Patriots, Jets, Patriots, they finish 14-3, and their reward is they get Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in round 1. Like, that, I don't love that either. So, people are wondering why we don't have as many huge games as it feels like we had in years past late in the season, and it's because at least this year, there's no playoff races. The only playoff races are divisional races. We know who the 7 AFC playoff teams are. We know 5 of the 7 NFC playoff teams already. And the only ones we don't know are the 2 division winners, which those races would be going on either way. So that's my little rant. I think the NFL's done a lot of really smart things, even things they've been criticized for. This is one I don't love. And I see the train coming down the tracks of the NFL considering at some point saying, well, 7's kind of a weird number. Why don't we just go to 8, have it be a true half the league makes the playoffs, and remove the byes entirely, which I would absolutely hate. And I think that would be legitimately bad for the league, because then the regular season, there's no incentive to try to be great in the regular season. All right, so there's my 10 minutes on that. Now we can get to the actual stories you guys had in there. So let's just go on to Green Bay and Detroit and get to the actual stories.
So tonight, Jordan Love, they go up against the Lions. The Lions have obviously been rolling this year, but they've got a bunch of injuries stacked up against them right now.
Yep.
So with all those injuries, if they end up beating this feisty Green Bay team, do you think it'll start to feel like they're more of a team of destiny, or this is their year?
Well, listen, the Lions have been great, and this should be, Damonza, one of the best Thursday night games ever. Not only because it's 2 excellent teams, but here's the other thing. 2 excellent teams, neither on short rest. We rarely get this, where I guess we get it somewhat regularly on this exact Thursday after Thanksgiving, but they both played on Thanksgiving, so they're both on regular rest for the week. So you're not going to have as much kind of disjointed football, as probably as many injuries as we tend to see on these short week Thursday games. And the upside for the Packers here is just massive. Like, we've talked about the Packers all year as, okay, they're a good team, but they're not clearly the class of the NFC. If they win this game, they're a game out of first place in the conference. If they win this game, they're a game out of first place in their division. Now, it'd be hard for them to catch Philly because they played Philly in week 1 and lost, so they would actually need, you know what I mean, to have a full game past Philadelphia. But Packers right now they're not fraudulent, but they have questions. And the reason I say that is they have played 3 games against the 3 teams in the conference that have a better record than them: Philly, Minnesota, Detroit. Those are their 3 losses. So they lose tonight, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, you're 0-4 against the 4 teams ahead of you, 9-0 against everyone else. How seriously can we believe that come the playoffs, you're going to be able to beat all of those teams, or at least 2 of those 3 teams that have owned you? So this is a huge game for the Packers. It is also a massive game for Detroit, because Detroit wins tonight, give themselves, keeps Minnesota at bay and puts Green Bay to bed from the division and stays the 1 seed. Detroit loses tonight, and they could find themselves come Sunday evening in a 3-way tie for first in the conference, a 2-way tie for first in the division. And Detroit, which we've been talking about them, Ford Field, never go outside, have the 1 seed, have the bye, to where they could be a loss to the Bills a week from now, away from being the 5 seed. And what I'm telling you, what you don't want if you're Detroit is to be smooth sailing all year long. They have played 1 game outdoors, right? How many games outdoors have they played? I'm going to pull it up. I think up to this point in the season, they've played 1 outdoor game. Yes, that's right. Because they're at the Packers, the only time they've been outdoors. And the rest of the way, they only have 2 more outdoor games, at Chicago and then at the Niners later in the year. What you don't want, Damonza, is you're smooth sailing all year, and then all of a sudden, a 10-day hiccup, Minnesota stays hot, you're the 5 seed, and your playoff path is, okay, no problem. Go to Tampa in week 1 of the playoffs, go to Philly in week, them coming off a bye in week 2 of the playoffs. Like, you gotta, so there is real stakes for Detroit. I do think Detroit's an excellent team. There's absolutely no denying they're an excellent team. I do worry about the clustering of injuries on defense, and if that is going to force them into shootouts in the postseason. And listen, we know who the Lions want to be. They want to run the ball, have Jared Goff throw, in advantageous down and distance positions, and he has been great. There's no denying that Jared Goff's been great. But playing with a lead indoors versus being in a dogfight outdoors feels like very different scenarios for the Lions. So I'm not acting like the Lions are frauds. I'm not acting like the Lions aren't one of the 4 best teams in football. They clearly are. There are clearly 4 teams in football that have separated themselves: the Eagles, the Lions, the Bills, and the Chiefs. And we can argue about the order of it. I don't buy the idea that the Lions, because of their margin of victory, are head and shoulders better than everybody. I don't buy that. I do think that a win tonight puts them in a great position to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And a loss tonight makes all of a sudden that game next Sunday against Buffalo damn near a must-win for them. So while the bottom part of the playoff race is not all that intriguing, the very top part in both conferences, Detroit trying to hold off Philly and Minnesota, the Chiefs trying to hold off Buffalo, are super intriguing. All right, next.
So the Chiefs have got some real dogs coming up in the Chargers. So the Chargers are 8-4. Justin Herbert's been up and down throughout the season. But with that said, how much are Herbert and the Chargers a threat to your Chiefs?
Well, down the road, they could be a real threat. They have a great coach. They're building the team smartly. This year, they are not a threat, and I actually really like this matchup for Kansas City. I don't know how many people watched the Chargers this past week, Damonza. You and I were watching together. We had a bunch of games on, but I'm going to look it up right now. They had 187 total yards of offense against the Atlanta Falcons. The only reason the Falcons didn't run away with that game is Kirk could not stop throwing picks. Threw a pick six, threw a pick in the end zone, and Herbert's having a weird year because he has 13 touchdowns, which is not great through 12 games, one interception, which is unbelievable through 12 games, but his yardage is way down. He's like 200 yards per game passing, and this past week was another example of it. 16 of 23, 147, no touchdowns. Like, not an overwhelming performance. Here is why I like this spot for Kansas City so much. The Chargers, as of late, seem to have one way to move the football. Ladd McConkey in the slot, rookie wide receiver. Trent McDuffie, the best slot corner in the league, who has been forced to play on the outside a lot this year, plays for the Chiefs, and I would imagine will just be on Ladd the vast majority of the game. You take Ladd McConkey away, I don't see how the Chargers score enough points. If you remember this last matchup, Chargers-Chiefs, this is the game that early on, Mahomes throws that pick that Rashee Rice, is this the Rashee Rice game? I think it is. Do I have that wrong? I thought Mahomes throws a pick. You guys can fact check me on it.
McConkey's not even playing in the game, right?
Say it again.
McConkey's not even playing, is he? This Sunday?
I would. Is why would Ladd McConkey be out? Is he out and I didn't know?
He's a limited
that would be
participant at practice Wednesday.
Oh, okay. So
just yesterday. I mean, he might be playing. He's questionable.
No, I think he's going to play.
I thought he was out.
Yeah. Well, if he's out, they can't move the ball. But I think he's going to. I thought that. Let me check the chart. So now I'm throwing a bunch of stuff. Guys, check real quick for me on if this was the game Rashee Rice got hurt in. I thought it was the first time they played. So Ladd McConkey. All right, so here's a good way to read NFL injury reports. If a guy is limited on Wednesday, usually he'll be able to play Sunday. If there are two indicators to me typically on injury reports. Limited Wednesday is a good sign. Does not practice Friday is a disastrous sign. Now, listen, sometimes guys are limited all week and they don't play. But as long as he wasn't a DNP, did not practice Wednesday, I usually think the guy's going to play. But the point that I was making for this first matchup, Mahomes throws that pick, tries to make the tackle. Rashee Rice's knee gets blown out when Mahomes trying to blow the tackle. The Chargers get up 10-0 immediately, and the Chiefs reel off 17 straight points and win the game. So the Chiefs are going to have their new left tackle, DJ Humphries, I would imagine, starting in this game. DJ Humphries has been a league average left tackle each of the last 3 seasons. 4 years ago, he was one of the best in the league. But the last 3 years, he's been league average. That wouldn't sound like such an upgrade, except for the fact the Chiefs have had literally the worst left tackle situation in football. The 2 guys they have played tackle this year, left tackle for them this year, PFF has rated as the 7th worst out of 73 qualifying tackles, left or right, in Wanya Morris. And Kingsley, there have been 140 tackles play as many snaps as Kingsley. He's 127th. So just getting average tackle play opens things up massively for Kansas City. They are on some extra rest having played Friday. This is their last, it's not their last extra rest spot, but after this, it's weird. They play Sunday, then they play Saturday, then they play Wednesday, then they play the following Sunday. So I like the Chiefs in this spot. I like what the Chargers are building, but I do think the Chargers right now are a bit, Damonza, of a product of their schedule. So their 4 losses have come against the 4 of the 5 playoff adjacent teams or playoff teams they've played. Steelers, Chiefs, Cardinals, Ravens. Their best win of the year is against the Broncos early in Bo Nix's career. Their other wins have come against the following teams: Raiders, Panthers, Saints, Browns, Titans, Bengals, Falcons. So they have proven their ability to beat the bad teams, and they're yet to prove anything against the good teams. I'm not saying this is going to be a blowout because the Chiefs don't play those style of games, but I like the Chiefs a lot.
Do you think that
in
the
this
Chargers?
spot.
Do you think the Chargers are the Packers of the AFC in a way? Given what you just said.
Well, I mean, kind of, except the Packers do have. They have a lot of They have 3 losses against the best teams they've played, but they've also beaten the Rams. They annihilated the Cardinals. They beat the Texans. So those,
so like the Cowboys have been before this year, like last year, kind of.
Yeah. That's a good example. It beat up the bad teams, lose to the good teams. I think that's a good comp. All right. The rap sheet said it's up in the air if McConkey plays. If McConkey doesn't play, the Chargers are cooked. But even if he does play, I just think you put Trent McDuffie on him and erase him. All right, let's go to the last topic here.
So at the moment, Seattle and Atlanta lead their divisions, and Cardinals are the second in the West. In the tiers, you had the Rams and Bucks. I had all those teams, though. So since I'm not going to be doing the gambling show today, I want to go ahead and get this in. So would you parlay LA and Tampa Bay to win their divisions at 720, plus 720?
Yeah, I would. I do think that's what's going to happen. I think the Rams are going to run down the Seahawks. And I know earlier in the year I said Niners-Cardinals could be the Sunday Night Football Week 18 game winning you're in. I now amend that to I think it might be Rams-Seahawks Sunday Night Football Week 18 game winning you're in. So I think that 10 wins can take that division. And listen, the Rams' schedule the rest of the way is not easy, but after this week, you get a bit of a respite. They are home for the Bills, then at the Niners, at the Jets, home for the Cardinals, home for the Seahawks. I think the Rams can go 4-1 in that stretch. They have, to my eye, they've only had one really bad game the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and that was the Dolphins game. I know they got cracked by the Eagles, but the Eagles are an excellent team. And as far as Tampa goes, Tampa's schedule is as good as it gets as far as going on a run. Home for the Raiders, at the Chargers, tough. Then at the Cowboys, home for the Panthers, home for the Saints. We all know Atlanta's going in the wrong direction. Now, Tampa, because they're 0-2 against Atlanta, has to finish with a better record than them, but I think they will. So at plus 720, Tampa and the Rams to win their divisions, yeah, go ahead and mark me down for that. Because I like that a lot right now. Getting 7-1 when I think that is what's going to happen. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. Come back. We have a special guest for the gambling show. Damonza then will be back in to do his teaser and to discuss the offer and things like that. But very quick break, right back as the red hot gambling show. 8-2 the last 2 weeks. 2-0 in teasers, just crushing. Do that next. What's right? Welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 283. And let's just be honest, an uninvited guest.
I invited myself.
Yeah, I mean, here is the full list of guests. If people are listening, by the way, and not watching, it's Danny Parkins from Breakfast Ball. Full list of guests in What's Right history that are not blood relatives or through marriage relatives of mine. Lil Wayne once.
That's right.
Danny Parkins and Andrew Filipponi, also uninvited once. And now Danny Parkins again.
That's right.
Uninvited for a second time.
I mean, we may as well be family.
Yeah, but I mean, correct. You are, it's funny you say that. Oh, this is much like I tell the producers live on the air when we're going to take shows off. I'll tell you something live on the air right now because you said might as well be family. I had to do some estate planning, life insurance, if something were to happen to me, what happens or whatever.
Yeah.
And I put you down as you're the executor, just so you know.
Oh, I don't get a percentage.
Well, so here's a funny thing about that. So we actually had to determine, can you pay yourself hourly or is it a flat rate? Because the executor is entitled to, if you don't do that, a percentage of what obviously will be a massive estate.
Yeah.
But here is the part of it that is, I think, going to either annoy you or make you laugh.
Probably both.
You
Go ahead.
are the second in command executor. You are the executor if something happens to the initial executor. Who do you think the initial executor would be in this circumstance? The person...
Is it Deanna if she's over 18?
No. It can't be any of the kids. It can't be
okay.
anything like that. I'm just going to tell you right now.
No.
It's Nicole.
That really annoys me.
I know it does. So
really annoys me.
Danielle's best friend,
Wait a minute.
Nicole, who goes on all our trips with us, and Danny's yet to be invited on one of these trips, is actually the executor. You are the
So if something happens to you and Nicole?
Yeah, then you're in.
Well, so here's
you're in.
sneaky
Yeah.
spin zone for me. If something happens to you, there's a decent chance it also happens to Nicole because she'll be on vacation.
Exactly right.
She'll be with you.
That's exactly right. But so Danny's here in part because the sports media world has refused to give Danny Parkins his flowers for what is objectively, year over year, by the way, red hot gambling picks. So last season, let's just go to last year, doing radio on the Score in Chicago.
I started 15-0.
He started documented on the air 15-0 against the spread.
Yeah.
It got no coverage?
It got no coverage, and it was partly my fault because when I made our social media team string the 5-week thing together to show it to go 15-0, I picked 3 games a week against the spread. I promptly went 0-6 over the next 2 weeks when I tried to get a bunch of coverage for it. Still finished at 61% for the season.
So 61% last year, which is exactly where my TV picks are this year. So a little more background here. Every year I'd been on TV, we were profitable against the spread until last year. Last year, we had our first losing record. This year, we're back at 61%, which again, the people who listen, who bet, understand this. Anything above 52.5% against the spread is great. You're making money. Anything above 57%, you're among the best in the country. Anything above 60% is... unprecedented is the wrong word, but it is historically impossible to sustain every year. No one's ever done that in the NFL. Danny, what are you this season?
27-15 against the spread,
which is 68%.
You're better at math.
Yeah, I mean
27 divided by 42.
Yeah, so 60. I'm gonna say 60. Producers say in my ear what it is. I'm gonna go with 67.3%.
I think it's right.
Is what it is.
I think it's right.
But regardless, 27 over 42 is only 64%. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Because 28 and 14 would have been 66.7. That's right. I did it the other way. I gave you 69 and 14. Regardless, it's great.
Thank you.
So, you wanted to come on here. Are we going to get your picks before TV? Well, how are you doing it?
Well, it's your show, and I invited myself on, so if you want me to give you some picks, I will. I did not give this one on TV today. Parkins Picks, 9:30 Fridays on Breakfast Ball. Got a very special thing planned for the picks tomorrow, so I don't want to give all of them away. But I will say this. I didn't make it an official pick on the air, but I have bet it. Green Bay tonight.
So that...
I like Green Bay tonight a lot.
So we're going to discuss that in just a moment.
Okay.
First, let me just quickly, for the audience, recap last week. Because on this show, we do 5. Last week, 4-1, one horrible miss, the others pretty carefree. I don't know if we can put up the graphic or not. If not, I'll just tell it to you. Chicago getting 9.5 against Detroit. That wasn't carefree in the first half.
Not at all.
It ended up being carefree. Pittsburgh getting 3 against Cincinnati. They win outright. The Chargers -1 against the Falcons. That actually, to be honest, was probably the worst pick of them all. The Chargers had no business winning that game, but Kirk Cousins was just dead set on the Falcons losing that game. The Rams -2.5 against New Orleans. I got to tell you, I don't remember any part of that football game, but I know it covered. And then Tennessee +6 against Washington. They were promptly down 28-0, and that pick was dead. But 4-1 on the year gets us to, on this show, 34-30-1 overall. All right, my first pick of the week is Green Bay getting 3.5 at Detroit.
Okay, we did not talk about this ahead of time.
So
go ahead.
My rationale is multi-layered. One is, I said this earlier, I don't know if you guys talked about it on the show this morning, this should be one of the best Thursday night games ever.
Yep.
Because not only is it 2 excellent teams with real stakes, both on full rest. Usually Thursday night games, teams are more banged up than usual or get more banged up. With that said, the previous Thursday, Detroit got all banged up. And I think the cluster of injuries along the defensive line, I also think Green Bay understands kind of a rubber meets the road moment. They are 0-3 against the 3 teams ahead of them in the conference. Minnesota, Philly, and Detroit. This is, they'll get one more shot against Minnesota and obviously this shot against Detroit. If they win tonight, Danny, they are definitively alive for the division. I don't think it's likely, but if they win, Detroit and Minnesota are at 2 losses. They'll be at 3, and they would have split with Detroit. They have Minnesota again later in the year. I think that Detroit has looked shakier the last few weeks. I still think they're an excellent team, but it's hard to win 10 in a row. It's hard to win 11 in a row in this league. I certainly like getting 3 and the hook. So we're on the same page of this game. You go ahead on your rationale on it.
So, first of all, when they played in week 9, the game was a lot closer than the score indicated. Green Bay had over 400 yards of offense. Detroit had less than 300. Oh,
this is the other thing people don't know about Danny.
You don't like my yards per play thing.
Danny doesn't love things about the NFL. Danny doesn't trust your record or
I watch the games.
Even within a game, who won or lost.
I watch
It's about
games.
who had more yards per play.
I'm seeing the NFL very clearly.
ahead.
I watched the games, and that was a game. It was a game in the rain. Weird things happened. Jordan Love threw a terrible pick 6, and you'd say, well, Jordan Love throws interceptions. Fine. That was a gift-wrapped pick 6 to Detroit. Could not have made it any easier for him. Then Wicks, wide open in the end zone, 9-yard pass, puts it right on his hands. He drops it. 4th and 1, they then go for it instead of kicking a field goal because they had been down by multiple scores. End up coming out of that possession with 0 points. I thought that Green Bay absolutely, not maybe not could have won the game, but should have played that game a lot closer than they did.
If people don't remember the game, just to be clear, I'm glad Danny didn't say they could have won.
They could not have
were
won.
Down 24-3
I know.
with a minute left in the third. But I actually understand what you're. And the
pick
pick six before the half, the game was 7-3 with a minute left in the first half.
Correct.
Detroit field goal, then pick six. It's 17-3 off to the races.
It escalated. And also, out of that game, the Packers have leaned in more to Josh Jacobs. He's second in the NFL in touches since that game, only behind Saquon Barkley. He's got 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games since then. Jordan Love has no turnovers in the last 2 games. And you mentioned Detroit's injuries. They now have, I believe it's 13 defensive players
on IR.
Yeah. And just from the game against the Bears last week, 2 more defensive linemen out. They're not on IR, but they've been ruled out for tonight's game. So it's just Detroit. I look at this as kind of like a San Francisco thing. I think that they've just reached a breaking point with their defense. It'll be in a dome. Their offense is amazing. They're going to score a lot of points. This will be way more. I think there'll be way more points tonight than 24-14. But you give me 3 in the hook and how Green Bay has relied on the running game and what Detroit now doesn't have in their front 7, I think the matchup absolutely gives this one to Green Bay.
So I agree with the vast majority of that. I also like Green Bay. I was a little distracted by what are you doing with your thumbs in your shirt?
I don't know.
Sorry about that.
I
thought it was. I got to tell you, at first I was like, wait, because some shirts have a little like.
It's got a little
made
button
for that
situation.
Yeah, but that's not what the shirt's made for. I just saw it. I saw it.
So I was going to wear that jacket. I didn't want to. I didn't want to match with you. Yeah. I'm sorry
all right.
about that.
I'm going to give you. What are your first weeks on the air? You gave a pick. I don't remember what it was. And Craig said something super funny that made me smile.
Okay.
Where he's like, you love these grimy games.
Oh, yeah.
And that you, where you are better than me is sometimes I'm like, man, I have a feel in this game, but I don't want to watch a second of it.
Yeah, no.
So I don't want to bet it because I don't want to be invested in it.
I'll bet anything.
This game checks those boxes, but it's a local game, so I'll have no choice but to have it on one of the TVs, so I don't mind. I love the Giants getting 4.5 at home against New Orleans. So
that might be a little too grimy even for me. Go ahead.
The Saints without Taysom Hill can't move the football. What are you laughing about?
I mean, you were like the biggest anti-Taysom Hill guy in the world, and now he's like a key,
no.
integral piece. All right, go ahead.
Much like many of my seemingly controversial opinions, upon a level deeper inspection, you'll realize, not only was that not controversial, it was 100% correct. Taysom Hill, as a gadget guy, is awesome. Taysom Hill, when Sean Payton was like,
made him a quarterback.
He's our next quarterback, and we're going to pay him $18 million a year, was an absurdity. But for the Saints this year weren't using him like that. They were using him as a running back, wide receiver, H-back, tight end, his destiny. And by the way, his career might be over. He's 35. He's older than people think.
What quarterback are you comfortable betting on here in this game?
I don't even know who's playing for the Giants. I assume it's Drew Lock.
That's kind of what I thought.
But I don't care.
Oh, you don't care.
I'm getting 4.5 points. Derek Carr has played 16 games in his career as a road favorite. What do you think his record against the spread is?
Oh, it's
16 games.
3-13.
1-14-1.
Wow.
The only win was indoors.
That's a bad trend.
Indoors in a dome. This game's obviously in New York in December.
In the cold, yep.
Derek Carr's 36% against the spread as a favorite for his career. That's the worst of any quarterback the last 20 years. The Giants have, I know you don't like the trend stuff. I some of it.
Trends.
No, but you care about like when it's, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You really don't like trends when it's like this team on this day.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's complete nonsense.
Or even like this team versus this team for the last 20 years.
Also nonsense. Yeah.
But when it's specific to a player, Derek Carr, I think that is somewhat instructive.
I agree. You know, I'm interested in like the Dolphins and the Colts type of trends.
Yes.
I'm interested in Josh Allen against the Dolphins type of trends, that sort of thing. Yeah, sure.
The Giants not only have lost their last 7 games, they have not covered their last 7. The reason I'm saying that when I'm betting the Giants is I feel like they are at some point, like they're going to get extra points, half point every week.
Like a market overcorrection.
Right, a market overcorrection.
Sure.
So I just think the Giants, honest to God, when I was doing my own little in my head guess the lines on this,
love it.
I thought this would be the Giants -1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I think the Saints in this spot with no Taysom outdoors in New York are like the Saints should not be a 4.5-point road favorite over anybody.
No, that's totally fair. This game is very, very grimy. The Giants have some quit in them though. They've had some quit in them. Like
no, that's true. They've dealt with their own injuries.
That's what I'm saying. So like they are, to me, they are just blowout potential every week. Like if they get down 10 early, we're positive this team's not just folding up and going home and getting out of there. To me, that's why it's scary to love them in any spot.
So that's fair. I just think getting 4.5.
I got you.
Right now, is a spot I like. I'm gonna go through my 5 and see if we have any overlap or or counter, and then we can get into more of yours.
Okay.
All right, this is a grimier game.
Okay.
There's one game on the slate, and I'm eating the points. I'm laying 3.5 points with Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans.
You're going back to the well with Tennessee, right? You had him last week against Washington.
Last week. I was
undeterred.
Getting 6.
Undeterred.
They are at home against a Mac Jones-led Jags team.
This is an anti-Mac Jones agenda for you.
1,000%.
Okay. He looked okay last week.
He did. He looked. So so I have a controversial theory. Andy Reid off a bye.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah, of course. That's a trend I put weight into, of course.
Great coach, more time. The worse you are, the better you are, we all agree. The more time you have to prepare, the better. The worse you are,
the less time you have to prepare, the better.
Right. So Mac Jones didn't even think he was playing.
He was as surprised as anybody.
Gets thrown in the game.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, he's okay. All week, Mac Jones is like, this is my last chance to prove I can be a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Game plan tailored for me.
Right.
I'm playing the Titans. He's going to be horrible. Just horrible. And so,
all right, you bet your own narratives a little bit more than I do.
He's 5-17 against the spread as an underdog in his career, getting points. 5-17 against the spread. I think the Jags, talk about a team that's going to have given up. The Titans had shown prior to that Washington game, they had shown some fight lately, and even in that Washington game, down 28-0, all of a sudden it was like, oh, they didn't roll over. It ended up 42-19. What did they get it to at one point? They got it to 28-13. So I mean, not a huge thing, but they didn't just flat out quit. I think that obviously Levis is trying to prove who he is. The coach is trying to prove who he is. Everyone in Jacksonville knows it's over.
Right. You should not be quitting on a new coach in year one in Tennessee. That I completely agree with. I'm just going to ask you this. If we were going to do a montage of the 10 worst plays in the NFL this year, how many of them do you think are populated by Will Levis?
3.
Okay.
He's got 3 of them.
All right.
There's no doubt about it. He hasn't had as many lately.
That's true.
That was early. A lot early.
That's true.
And I don't like Levis. And I certainly don't like laying 3.5.
Yep.
But how many more opportunities in our life are we going to have a chance to bet against Mac Jones and we're laying less than a touchdown? Not many.
No.
This could be the last one.
Yeah. We should watch this one together.
This could be the last one. All right. Now to 2 great games after those grimy games.
Okay, here we go.
I think the Rams are going to beat the Bills. I certainly like them getting 4.5. This is such a massive spot for the Rams. Remember, the last time they played Buffalo, they were the defending Super Bowl champions. It was week 1, and Buffalo annihilated them in that game to kind of announce themselves that season. That was the Bills, the first game after the 13 seconds game.
Yeah.
And it was the Rams defense is better than people think it is. That Jared Verse has been awesome. That was one of my best preseason picks, was Jared Verse for Defensive Player of the Year. This feels to me like a 27-24 game in either direction. So I'm getting 4.5 points for a Rams team. They don't have to have it, but if they lose it, they do have to run the table. Like, so the Rams got 5 games left. They've got to go 4-1 if they're going to win that division. Buffalo needs this game for 1 seed reasons.
Yeah.
Doesn't need it at all for any other reason. And Buffalo also has Detroit the following week. So there's a bunch of factors where I would just be surprised if the Bills, blow out the Rams. I think the Rams can win outright. I certainly love them getting a full 4.5.
I did not lay the points in this spot. You know, I think Josh Allen is the second best player in football, and I picked him for MVP before the year. Did you have versus defensive rookie of the year or defensive player of the year?
Rookie. Did I say player?
You said player of the year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Defensive rookie of the year.
Okay. I thought
he's not going to win defensive player of the year.
Well, no, of course. I was curious because there weren't that many high
defensive
defensive draft picks for rookies, so he was one of the favorites. But yeah, he does look like he's got star potential for the Rams.
You guys see what he did there, trying to just kind of throw a little water on my defensive rookie of the year pick?
It wasn't.
You don't have to be a high draft pick to win defensive rookie of the year.
But wasn't he the
Anybody
second?
can win.
I think he was the second. You were like one of my best picks. He was like the second favorite.
I think he was
preseason.
probably like plus 600. I think that's like a good bet. I think, you know what? I think plus 600.
It was the second favorite. Someone has to.
Go ahead.
All right, yeah, 6-1 is a good winning bet. Congratulations on all your success. I think the Rams are good. I think Buffalo is potentially great, and I don't buy at all trap game or letdown spot, because I do think they're playing for the 1 seed, and if they lose, Pittsburgh could jump them for the 2 seed. I do think they would want to avoid Baltimore, who blew them out earlier in the season. Buffalo.
What do you mean avoid Baltimore, though?
In the playoffs for seeding.
I guess I don't. So because there's not bye for this 2 seed.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge difference between the 2 and the 3. And I would agree with you if we knew, this dog shit team is going to be the 7 seed. You might get Baltimore if you're the 2 or the 3.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
we have no way of Chargers, Ravens, Broncos, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5. Like, we have no idea. But go ahead.
How do you feel about the idea of like they're going to play for Josh Allen to be MVP, and a big piece of that is if they get to 14-3 or 13-4, that is massively significant for him to win MVP.
I
just don't expect letdown spots from this team.
So I don't necessarily expect letdown spots.
Because I've seen that this week, that like it was the snow, it was national TV against the Niners, and then next week is their game against the Lions, which could be a Super Bowl preview, flying across the country. I just don't think that when you put the film on and you see Matt Stafford, you have a letdown.
It's not so much a letdown spot as much as it's hard to play excellent every week.
Yeah.
You know what I like? And the Bills have what? They've won 7 straight. They won their biggest game of the season 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They looked awesome, and they are the toast of the NFL town this week.
You love fading teams that become the toast of the NFL whenever that team is not the Chiefs.
Well, but by the way, the Chiefs don't cover when they're.
No, I get it. I think it's informed. By that.
I just think that too often, little Chiefs conversation for a moment, and this is the penalty, if you will, of being the dynasty. The Chiefs are discussed under the context of their worst or their potential issues. every other team competing with them to be the best is only discussed under the context of what they do well. This was a thing with Baltimore. Baltimore finally lost enough games. People were like, okay, maybe they're not a juggernaut. The Lions, there wasn't a mumbling word spent this week about they really almost blew that Bears game. Like, nobody has been like, what happened to the Lions in the second half of that game? It took such a catastrophic collapse by the other team that they had to fire their coach mid-season for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And if that were the Chiefs in that spot, the narrative would have been, if Eberflus knows what he's doing, the Chiefs lose, as opposed to kick a field goal to force overtime. So the Bills are the team that beat the Chiefs. They are also the team that needed a 61-yard field goal to beat the Dolphins a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, they are all. So I think that if I were giving Madden ratings to teams, I think that Buffalo is a 91 and the Rams are an 84. And when you then incorporate the fact that this game is in Los Angeles, it means certainly more to the Rams, even if it means something for Buffalo.
That's fair.
And I'm getting 4.5 points. I just like the Rams.
So we have not been against each other yet, and you haven't hit on a game that I think I'm picking on the TV show tomorrow yet. So I'm kind of playing a little devil's advocate for you on your picks here.
All right, so this one I'm certain we're not going to be on the same side of. I think there's a chance we're oppo. It has been a long time since I bet the Chiefs. They are laying 3.5.
Yeah.
Against the guy Danny Parkins believes is the third best player in the league.
That's right. It was a rough game last week, though, for that opinion, but go ahead.
It's been a rough season for that opinion. It's been a rough season for the Justin Herberts. He's got a great offensive line, a great coach. I mean, he's averaging 1 touchdown and 200 yards a game.
They're focused on the running game. They're establishing a culture more than stats. They're winning more than last year. He's the only player in the NFL through 11 weeks to have a passer rating over 90 in every game. Go ahead.
So what's their yards per play look like with the Chargers?
They're focusing on grimy runs. I'm worried that Harbaugh is going to just be too much. Him and Greg Roman are going to take the ball out of Herbert's hands and just focus on wins and not stats for my guy. So my guy's going to win a little bit, then he'll get back to the stats.
So
and
I want
to be the guy who inducts him into Canton.
Justin Herbert this year is 18th in the NFL in pass attempts.
Right.
And 18th in passing yards.
That's on his coach.
No. What I'm saying is, He has exactly as many yards as you would think he would have with that many pass attempts. That doesn't scream to me otherworldly talent. But here's I like Herbert.
Did you watch games with your eyes closed? What are you talking about? The guy has an otherworldly physical talent. He just is.
So here's the question I have for you and for other people. How deep into your NFL career does your NFL career outweigh your combine profile?
This isn't a combine thing. If every quarterback in the NFL was a free agent and there was a draft tomorrow of the GMs, what pick in the draft do you think Justin Herbert is?
Probably 7th or 8th.
Okay. And I think he's probably 4th or 5th.
No. And
I would take him 3rd. I would take him 3rd, but I think that the league would take him 4th or 5th.
And I'm just curious. The argument for Justin Herbert over Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are what now?
Oh, well, I don't think the Lamar Jackson one's that difficult to make.
Okay, well, tell me.
I don't think that Lamar Jackson, so much of what he does and what makes him special is the mobility and the athleticism, which will be a declining, depreciating skill set over the course of his career. And so I believe that even though we are witnessing yet again another MVP caliber season, even though he will not win it, from Lamar Jackson, and he helps the running game in a tremendous way, and Lamar Jackson is amazing, I do think that, if I was going to bet on a guy's 30s, and now we see quarterbacks play into their late 30s or 40s with a high degree of regularity, if I was going to bet on who is going to have the better 30s, Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert, I would bet heavily on Justin Herbert.
So you talked about the things Lamar does great. Just remind me the thing Justin
Throws
Herbert
the ball.
does great.
Throws the ball.
But so like, and the
spiral. The
spiral.
arm talent. Where he puts the ball.
Okay.
Yeah, man. This is an eye test situation.
I've got one more thing that
The Burrow argument is tough to make.
Because it can't be made, but
it absolutely can be. If you gave me one head coach for Herbert's entire career, and you gave me Herbert and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I would love to see what type of offensive success and prowess Justin Herbert would have. Because I do think he's more physically talented than Joe Burrow, but Burrow has won at a higher level with a better offensive situation.
And he's more accurate, and he has better numbers and all these
with
things.
better players and more consistency on offense.
So the better players thing, I listened to you prior to this season multiple times.
Yeah.
Pick the Chargers to win or make the Super Bowl.
And then guys get hurt and their coaches get fired.
You obviously thought they had good rosters. Here's the question I would have.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to this.
And then Bosa gets hurt, and then Derwin James gets hurt.
Injuries happen in the NFL. Here's the question I would have, and I don't have the answer to this.
Okay.
I'm going to look it up today. Do you think the Chargers are going to win a playoff game this year? Probably not, right?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
I just want to know who the all-time legendary quarterback is other than Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
Who went the first 5 seasons of his career without a playoff win.
I think Peyton Manning?
No.
He won one?
Peyton, let me pull it up. The Peyton Manning, because he
didn't go to the AFC Championship game until year 6.
So Peyton came in because I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah,
Peyton Manning won 2 playoff games he came in the league in 98 and 03. 98, 99, 2001, 2. Okay, so next year will be your year.
Yeah, next year's my year. Next year's my year. He's got it. Yes.
Peyton Manning in year 6.
Thank you.
Had a playoff game where he had a perfect passer rating, 5 touchdowns, 377 yards.
Next year's my year.
Then the no punt game against the Chiefs.
I was at that game.
And then they lost in the AFC Championship game. I said Stafford. Stafford did win a playoff game with Detroit. So I want to make sure I didn't shortchange Stafford. Oh, no, he didn't. He went to the playoffs 3 times with Detroit, never won a playoff game. So Stafford would be the guy. And again, I don't dislike Herbert.
Now, it sounds like you do.
No, I think that some accountability needs to fall on him, and he has not played at the level you thought he was going to play at this year. He is not. He has not.
Okay, they've been focusing on running the ball too much, Harbaugh. Let the guy throw.
And so
bring T. Higgins to the Chargers next year, and then you know what I'm going to do preseason next year?
Buddy, you pick them to win the Super Bowl is what you're going to do.
Probably will.
But listen, the short version of this is I don't think the Chargers offense is going to be able to move the ball because I think Trent McDuffie's going to race Ladd McConkey, assuming Ladd plays.
Yeah.
And
the Dobbins injury is big for them, too.
The Chiefs don't blow people out, but they can beat the Chargers by more than 3.5, and they, especially with the Chargers or the Chiefs on extra rest for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, my 5 picks, Green Bay plus 3.5, the Giants plus 4.5, the Titans minus 3.5, the Rams plus 4.5, and the Chiefs minus 3.5. You have Green Bay plus 3.5. Do you want to reveal any of your TV picks for tomorrow? Is there one game? Is there any?
How about I reveal one?
Perfect.
And then I have everyone else tune in to Parket's picks, 27-15 against the spread. I appreciate you letting me invite myself on What's Right to get a little bit of attention on how, by the way, sometimes we go against each other and there's a little bit of an adversarial thing. We're 1-2, buddy. I haven't seen a media member come out and say that they're picking. So, like, being second to me is no slight.
And especially when I'm going to end up passing you. But, that is correct. I do think Danny and I have the best and second best against the spread record for anybody that's picking games documented on TV every week. But go ahead.
Atlanta plus 5.5 against Minnesota.
Wow. I almost made the Vikings one of my picks, so I'm interested in this.
Okay. So I think, in general, we have a recency bias to a lot of things in life, and that game from Kirk Cousins was indefensible. It was atrocious. There is no defending how he played last week. But for a lot of this season, Like, he started very slow as he was working his way back, but then for a large chunk of the season, Atlanta was a top 10 offense. And so I think that Minnesota, their record, got a ton of attention early, and they deserved it because it was shocking. It was out of nowhere. Everyone picked them to be fourth in the NFC North, and they beat good teams. So they deserved all of their hype at 5-0. But man, they have one-score wins against the Jets, the Colts, the Cardinals, the Bears.
And the Jags.
And the Jags, thank you. And I think that they were living on Brian Flores' blitzing. They blitz, they blitz, they blitz, they blitz, they blitz. And that allows for some feast or famine. And so the more that gets put on film, the easier it is to game plan against. So when people were saying Penix should start this week, I immediately said after the 4-interception game, this isn't the spot to do that. Let Kirk Cousins go back to Minnesota. They're still a favorite to make the playoffs. They still could win the division. They still could have a home playoff game. And let the veteran quarterback who's seen every defense in the world play Brian Flores and his blitz scheme and see if he can go to Minnesota and pick that defense apart and recover from the 4-interception game. If he throws 3 picks, gets sacked 6 times, then it's Michael Penix and you move on. So I look at this as kind of a Kirk Cousins last stand.
Sure.
And 5.5 points is too many for a team that is not at all winning in convincing fashion against bad teams.
Listen, that's all sound. The concern is that Kirk Cousins is cooked.
Of course.
And he's going to get annihilated.
That is definitely in play, and Atlanta has no pass rush of their own. So I think that both teams could score in that spot, but 5.5 is a big number for Kirk Cousins in a dome.
You say Atlanta has no pass rush?
Yeah.
You would think the third most talented quarterback in the league might be able to carve him up last week instead of throwing for 160 and 0 touchdowns.
Again, it was
and needing a pick six.
It was
to win the game.
It was
I
not.
mean, you would think
it was not a great. It was not a great situation.
You would think Justin Herbert might be able to muster more than 10 offensive points against that Falcons pass rush. All right,
injuries. Yeah.
Injuries, of course. It's always the injuries.
Injuries.
All right, the only thing hotter than Danny's picks this year are Damonza's teasers.
That's true.
He'll give his teaser, and we'll do the offer. And this has been a long pod. Then we got to get out of here. That's next. Danny, appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
So check out Breakfast Ball on FS1, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, 5 to 8 a.m. Pacific. Very, very quick break. Come right. In fact, just stick around, Danny, for Damonza's teaser, and that way we don't have to recalibrate everything. Very quick break. Right back with Damonza. What's right? All right, welcome back in. What's right with Nick Wright, Danny Parkins stopping by the show. Damonza, sorry for kicking you off that segment, but appreciate you. You left because I could still see where you're at, your monitor, and the chair was empty for a bit. I thought you might have just left. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm out of here.
I was just sitting in the seat right there. I was still listening to you guys.
All right, so last week your teaser covered by 20 points, both legs basically. Right?
Yeah.
You had the Raiders getting 20. They lost by 2, so that covered by 18. You had the Steelers getting 10. They won by 10, right? So that
They won by 6.
They won by 6. Okay, so that covered by 16. All right, what do you have for us this week?
This week is a 2-team 7.5-point teaser at minus 163 again. We're teasing Carolina up to plus 20 at Philly. And I'm also going to tease up Chicago to 11 at San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, Philly's obviously dominant, but I trust the Panthers and Bryce Young. I think that he's been showing some stuff, and I think that he can cover a 20-point spread against the Eagles. And then the Bears, I honestly could see them winning that game outright. So I trust them with the 11 points. That's the.
I
that's
worry
teaser.
a little bit about Philly's offense against that Panthers defense. That could get out of hand.
Panthers' worst rush defense in the league.
Yeah, that's the part that worries.
But Bryce Young, I like the logic. Bryce Young looks good since he's been benched.
100%.
He does.
He's playing for a job next year. I mean, he's probably already got one.
I love the Chicago leg of it. So because I don't think the Niners can blow anyone out the way they are right now, and the Bears maybe the fired coach bump. So I usually give these teasers grades. Danny, since you're here, I'll let you give it a grade.
You go like A,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. That's how grades work. Yeah. So, I'll say that's a solid B plus. I like the Carolina and Chicago legs. Yeah, that's a B plus teaser. 7.5 minus 165 is just a teaser that I would never make.
Okay.
But
this has been his.
I know he's been crushing.
He's been doing the 7.5s the whole year.
Yeah.
What he was
We're gonna add a
trying
team
like
next year. I mean, we did like a 5-leg teaser last year. So
I would recommend instead of adding a team, subtracting a point.
There we go.
Instead of going to a 3-teamer, I would potentially go to a 6.5 or 6.5 point teaser. All right, what's the offer this week, Damonza?
So the offer this week, we're gonna go back to the touchdown genie. And actually we're gonna start with tonight's game. Do you see anybody scoring there? Is there anybody you wanna pick up there?
Yeah. So here, Danny, there are the odds for anytime touchdown scorer.
Yeah, I've already bet one of them.
Josh Jacobs.
Oh yeah.
Minus 150.
I got minus 140 first thing this morning. But
yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Josh Jacobs, anytime touchdown scorer, minus 150. You don't love laying minus numbers, obviously, on touchdowns, but you got.
See, I don't mind that. They're giving the guy 20 plus touches a game. Like if they get inside the 5, you know he's going to get multiple touches in that spot. So like I never fear laying I mean, he will score a touchdown tonight. So lay minus 150. That's fine.
All right, we'll do minus 150, and then I'm going to put little bonus. Just in honor of the tiny hands gimmick from yesterday's show. A little tiny taste on Green Bay defense special teams touchdown scorer at plus 550, and maybe an even smaller taste on Green Bay defense special teams first touchdown scorer at 30-1. So there it is. Danny, great job.
Thank you.
We'll get to some of these listener questions. We'll do them at the end of Tuesday's show. We got to run. I'm going to be late for TV. Check out Breakfast Ball in the morning. We're going to have Damonza's going to hit his teaser. I'm going to have another 4-in-1 week. Danny's going to go 1-2 on TV, with the one being the one that he agreed with me on, and I'm going to pass him in the standings. And again, Barrett Sports Media, awful announcing. The Puck, the guys at the Post, anybody. Somebody write an article about the 2 best football gambling pickers being 2 guys who have known each other for 20 years, went to college together, did radio together in Kansas City, now do TV together at FS1. We're combined 50, 30, and 1 against the spread.
We actually bet them too.
30 and 1 against the spread. Where's the media coverage? Hey, folks. Stephen A's contract, that beat is covered. Like that ground has been covered. I'm just letting you know. And you know what's also been covered? Dan Orlovsky's silly little VR tool. Everyone, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in media. Give me a break. Like, somebody talk. We're making people money. See you guys on TV later. What's right? Hey, thanks for watching. If you're still here, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes. After you've done that, one more favor, go to your favorite audio platform of choice and subscribe there as well. Don't forget, we're live every Tuesday and Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern-ish. 10:35, 10:40. It sometimes changes, but that's why you hit the bell. You hit the bell so you're notified. You subscribe so we can get to 200,000 followers. We're right around 150,000. We'd love to get to 200,000, get Damonza another plaque. So like, subscribe, rate, send a rating too. Do all that cool stuff. Thanks, guys.